Bon dia. So here we are, continuing the chapter about Eleanor. My personality was different to Stephen's, perfectly demonstrating yet again that opposites do indeed attract. The musician was a great artist because of his passion, and that passion to create, to obsess on perfection, and to react to the purely emotional showed itself in his everyday behaviour. People knew where they were at any given time with Stephen because his face could not hide happiness, love, mistrust, anger, or frustration. When Eleanor's health had deteriorated to such a degree that Stephen and I had moved from our home into her place, there followed many months when the helplessness Stephen felt in relation to guiding his friends through the changes life was bringing her revealed itself in regular criticisms of the elderly lady's behaviour. And at one point, there was not a day that went by without Stephen saying, "Eleanor, you're being stupid." This being his only release for the frustration he felt. His remarks were born from a trio of emotions. There was his inability to understand the fear that ruled Eleanor, the disappointment he felt in her for not being able to fight those anxieties, and anger that the situation was largely out of his control. However, Eleanor was used to Stephen's ways, and as time passed, robbing her daily of her independence and making Stephen and I her only real contact to the outside world and outside of herself, she accepted the changing dynamics within her home. Eleanor's relationship with me was rather more volatile than with her older friend. Unlike Stephen, I tried desperately to understand people and their actions, remembering something that my dad had often said about acquaintances. When you accept somebody's friendship, you take them as they are. There are things we do not like about everybody, but if the friendship is worth more than those traits, you learn to live with them, as people are no doubt doing with you. Yet acceptance did not always come easily to me, and I never quite managed to forget everyday things that frustrated me. And inevitably, those emotions surfaced in an eruption that appeared disproportionate to the occasion. So whereas Stephen's daily comments vented how he felt, and their regularity took away the sting, when I exploded, I held nothing back, using any hurtful comment which came to mind in order to balance what was in my mind the scale of petty slights, gripes, and ungratefulness Eleanor showed me and my husband. Nothing demonstrated the lunacy of this more than the time that I bent toward her until my eyes were level with those of the old lady that Steve and I were jointly caring for. And the months of trying to reason out and excuse 1,001 issues exited my mouth in a rasping squawk. The noise, which sounded like some demented crow, seemed to last a lifetime, but in reality went on for no more than a few seconds, leaving Eleanor sitting in her chair disbelieving what had just occurred, and me embarrassed, ashamed, but unrepentant, believing that my wrong had been justified, if not exactly right. Luckily, throughout it all, Steve and I had each other, and neither one of us passed judgment on the other on how we dealt with the situation we found ourselves in. As the days drew to a close and we lay in bed, airing the events of the previous 18 hours, it was commonplace to hear us say, "We must remember that she's in her 80s. There's a contrast to the more difficult aspects of day-to-day living for the three of us in that house. And that was the ability that we all had to view many phases of our specific circumstances with a tongue-in-cheek view of things. Eleanor's new life gave as well as it took. And some of the rewards for moving to Portugal were the means to employ a cleaner, a gardener, and a personal physiotherapist. Further to this, an arrangement had been agreed upon for her help from. Oh, sorry, let me start this bit again. Further to this, an arrangement had been agreed upon for the help that Stephen and I gave in the way of the many everyday chores, such as cooking, washing, and shopping. The financial reward that we received eased things greatly for us, and without that help that Eleanor gave us, we would have been unable to continue living in our home and hers at the same time. But underpinning that arrangement was a genuine friendship which rewarded both sides. The wry side of life in the village that neighboured Potato showed up in different ways. But one situation that brought grins all round was when Eleanor needed new underwear. Beatrice was the lady who went once a week to the English lady's house to hoover, dust, mop and do general cleaning. The Portuguese lady had worked for Chicken John and picked up a very few basic words of English. So even though she never ventured to speak it, an understanding, a friendship and trust nevertheless built between her and Eleanor. When the elderly lady needed new underwear, Stephen and I felt suitably unqualified and uncomfortable about going to a shop and buying it for our friend, and asking Beatrice seemed a good idea. It was me who made the phone call, my Portuguese being slightly better than Stephen's. Hola, Beatrice. Raymond speaking here. Hola, tudo bem? Tudo bem. And everything well with you? Si, tudo bem. Look, Eleanor needs some new cuecas, but Stephen and I feel embarrassed about buying them. But get them for her? Grazie. But what type does she want? Well, when you go to Eleanor's, ask her to show her. Sorry. Okay, when you go to Eleanor's, ask her to show. Sorry. Okay. Well, when you go to Eleanor's, ask her to show. Sorry. When you go to Eleanor's, ask her to get her to show you her knickers. Oh dear, sorry. I spoke with Eleanor immediately after this phone call to Beatrice, and I explained the situation to my friend on the other end of the line. Sorry, I heard the spell in her voice that was reciprocated in Eleanor's, who was more than happy showing her knickers if it helped her get what she wanted. Sorry about that. Right.